Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing an Ancient Gear deck profile. So this deck is probably one of the most nostalgic decks in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Outside of Dark Magician, Blue Eyes, and Red Eyes, because it plays one of the most iconic cards in the entire game, which is Ancient Gear Golem. If you guys have ever watched Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, you know this card, and it is an insanely good card and one of the coolest cards in the entire game. But the entire deck is basically a OTK-based build that's going to be able to be one of the best OTK-based builds in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Which is insanely good. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below where we have all those awesome rewards you guys, like getting your name scripts for every single video, getting a side card to the mail, or even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing a single copy of Ancient Gear Golem. So you got to play at least one Ancient Gear Golem because it is one of the main combo pieces of the entire deck. And it cannot be special summoned, and when this card attacks, you inflict piercing damage, which is a really amazing effect. And also your opponent cannot activate spells or traps when this card is battling. We then play one copy of Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Pound. Ultimate Pound is another basically Ancient Gear Golem in the deck, which is a really good card that it cannot be special summoned, and if this card attacks and inflicts piercing damage and up to twice per turn, when this card destroys a monster by battle, you can discard a machine, and this card can attack again in a row. And if this card is destroyed, if this card on the field is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can add a polymerization from your deck to your hand. And if you do, you get to add one Ancient Gear card from your graveyard to your hand, which is pretty good, but we don't really play polymerization in the deck, so you basically just get the first effect off the majority of the time, but it still counts as Ancient Gear Golem, kind of. Because then we play two copies of Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon. Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon is if this card is tribute summoned by tributing an Ancient Gear monster. This card can inflict piercing damage, which is the really good effect of this card. And it also has the ability, if this card attacks your opponent's monster, your opponent can activate spells or traps until the end of the damage step. And at the end of the damage step, if this card attacks, you can destroy a spell or trap, which is a really good effect just to be able to pop spells and traps on your opponent's side of the field. And it's a level 9 monster, which helps us go into True King of all calamities in the deck. We then play 3 copies of Ancient Gear Wyvern. Wyvern is basically the searcher of the deck, because if this card is normal or special summon, you get to add any Ancient Gear card from your deck to your hand, except another copy of itself. Also, you cannot set cards for the rest of the turn, which is not the big of a deal, because this deck is an all-in kind of deck that you're not really worried about setting anything anyways. And then also has the ability that if this card attacks, your opponent cannot activate their effects into the end of the damage step, which the majority of your Ancient Gears actually share that ability. We then play 2 copies of Ancient Gear Frame. Ancient Gear Frame is kind of neat because it lets you discard a card to add an Ancient Gear Golem or one spell or trap that specifically lists Ancient Gear Golem in its text from your deck to your hand. And you can only see the effect of this card once per turn. And this card attacks, your opponent cannot activate spells or traps into the end of the damage step. And if this face-up card in his owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, then you can special summon up to 3 Ancient Gear Golems or Ancient Gear Ultimate Pounds from your hand, ignoring their summoning condition, which is a pretty good effect, but basically you're using this card to be able to search by discarding a card. We then play 3 copies of Hunting Hound. Hunting Hound is a walking polymerization. When it's normal summon, your opponent takes 600 points of damage. And the really good effect is that it is a walking polymerization, so it has the ability that once per turn, you can fusion summon 1 Ancient Gear monster from your extra deck, using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material, which is a really amazing effect. We then play, for the last Ancient Gear monster, we're only going to be playing 1 copy of Box. Box is one of those cards that's almost like a Garnet in the deck, because you don't want to draw into this card. If this card is added from your deck to your hand, then you get to, except by drawing it, you get to add 1 Earth Machine type monster from your deck with 500 defense or 500 attack or defense, which is a pretty good effect to be able to just add any of the cards that you need from your deck to your hand to be able to just grab like a copy of the Infinitrack monsters, which we actually play Infinitrack monsters in the deck. Which we play 3 copies of Infinitrack Anchor Drill. So the reason you play Anchor Drill is because this card gets you into your Ancient Gear Ballista extremely quickly, which is really amazing, because Ancient Gear Ballista just requires 2 Earth Machine monsters, which is the main effect of this card that you're going to be trying to get in the deck as quickly as possible. So this card has the ability that if this card is normal or special summon, you can special summon an Earth Machine monster from your hand, which is literally anything but your Ancient Gear Golem or your Ultimate Bound that you can just special summon from your hand. And it also has the ability to target 1 other machine monster you control, and its level becomes both this monster and that monster. You combine those levels, which is pretty good to help you with XYZ plays, but basically you're using this card to go into your copy of Ballista. We then play 3 copies of Super Express Train. Super Express Train lets you special summon it to your side of the field if you control a Earth Machine monster, which everything is Earth Machine. So this card's ridiculously easy to use in this deck. And then during the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you can target a machine monster in your graveyard and add it back to your hand, except another copy of itself, which is a really good effect just to be able to grab you another machine monster out of the graveyard. We then play 2 copies of Flying Pegasus Railroad Stampede. So this card is ridiculously good because if this card is normal or special summon, you can target an Earth Machine monster in your graveyard and special summon it in defense position, but you negate its effects. And then you can target one other face-up monster you control, and the level of this card and that card become the same between the 2 monsters. So for example, I can target either this card or I can target my Reactor Dragon and be able to copy their level. So like for example, I can make this card a level 9 and this card a level 9, or I can make this card a level 4 and this card a level 4 to go into rank 4 play or into a copy of a rank 9 play, which is the big one that I'm going to be going into in this deck anyways. But it's a really good card to be able to summon onto your side of the field, but for the rest of the turn, you cannot declare an attack for the rest of the turn except with XYZ monsters, which is not that big of a deal because if you're going first, you're going to use this and this to go in your copy of your ancient, or your copy of your True King of all Calamities. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Terraforming because it's going to search literally any of your field spells that you need from your deck to your hand, which is usually going to be your copy of Gear Town that you're going to be grabbing out of the deck as quickly as possible. 2 copies of Foolish Burial Goods because Foolish Burial Goods is pretty good in the deck to be able to send from your deck to the graveyard your copy of Catapult, which is going to help you out in the long term to get out your copy of Ballista. 2 copies of Overload Fusion because Overload Fusion is going to help you go in your Chaos Ancient Gear Giant or your Howitzer, which is going to be insanely good in the deck. I play this card as a 2-of because you can either use your copy of Anaconda to go into this, or you can use your copy of or you can just hard draw it, which is really good too. We play 2 copies of Ancient Gear Fusion. Ancient Gear Fusion is really good because it lets you fusion summon an Ancient Gear monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. And if you use an Ancient Gear Golem or an Ultimate Pound you control as a material, then you can also use monsters from your deck as material as well, which makes it really easy to go into any of your Ancient Gear monsters that you need at any given time. We then play 3 copies of Ancient Gear Catapult. Catapult is ridiculous in this deck. Catapult is probably one of the best cards in the entire deck to get into your hand to be able to pop your cards of Ancient Gear Fortress or Gear Town to get you additional monsters on your side of the field. That it says, while you control no monsters, you can target a card you control and destroy it, and if you do, get special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. And you can banish this card from your graveyard to target one face-up card you control, destroy it, and if you do, you get special summon 1 Ancient Gear token that's a level 1/0/0, and you can only use the effect of this card, each effect of this card once per turn. So this card can get you multiple pops on your side of the field. It can instantly pop your copy of Fortress and Gear Town in one fell swoop and give you a token, which is really good. And if you Foolish Burial Goods it to the graveyard, you're going to at least get the token and 1 pop, but this card is probably one of the best cards in the entire deck to get to your hand to get pops and to special summon out as many cards as you particularly need. We then play 3 copies of Ancient Gear Fortress. Ancient Gear Fortress is a really neat card. It's a really cool card because it has the ability, it's kind of like an upgraded version of Ancient Gear Castle, but it has the ability that during the turn they were normal or special summon, your opponent cannot target Ancient Gear monster you control with card effects, and they cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects either. And your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to the activated effects of your Ancient Gear cards effects. And if this card is destroyed in your spell and trap card zone, you can special summon an Ancient Gear monster in your hand or graveyard, and also you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except for Ancient Gear monsters, which is not that big of a deal because you're going to get all your monsters out before you pop this anyways, usually. We then play 3 copies of Gear Town. Gear Town lets you, basically, if it gets popped, you can special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard, which is really good. And then we play 3 copies of Urgent Schedule. Urgent Schedule is going to let you special summon out a level 4 or lower and a level 5 or higher Earth Machine monster from your deck, but you can't declare an attack for the rest of the turn, except with machine monsters. But it's a really cool card to be able to just get monsters out on your side of the field. And also, if this card is popped in the back row while it's set, you get to add a level 10 machine monster from your deck to your hand, which is pretty good. Just to be able to get it from your deck to your hand. But it's a really good card to be able to just activate and get exactly what you need as quickly as possible to go into your crazy plays. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, this is where the magic really starts happening with the OTK pieces. So we're going to go ahead and play 2 copies of Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. And if you summon this, you're probably going to win the game because this card is one of the craziest cards in the entire game with its OTK potential because it has the ability that you must be fusion summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways. And it's unaffected by spell traps, effects, and your opponent's monsters cannot activate their effects during the battle phase. This card can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. And if this card attacks a defense mission monster and inflicts piercing damage, if you go to battle phase with this, you win, essentially, because this card is going to deal so much damage against your opponent that they're not even going to be be able to do anything against it. We then play a single copy of Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. This card is a 4500 beat stick that inflicts piercing damage, and if this card is destroyed, then you get to special summon an Ancient Gear Golem from your graveyard, ignoring its summoning conditions, which is a really good effect just to replace itself. We then play a single copy of Ancient Gear Megaton Golem. Megaton Golem can attack your opponent equal to the amount of Ancient Gear Golems that you put into this card, which is really cool because it has the ability, if this card attacks an opponent, your opponent can activate spells or traps into the end of the damage step. And this card is fusion summon using 2 or more Ancient Gear Golems or Ultimate Pound as a material. This card can attack that many times during the battle phase, and if this face-up fusion summon card in its owner's possession leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, by opponent's card effect, you can special summon 1 Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem from your extra deck, ignoring its summoning conditions, which is why you play the 1 copy of the Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. We then play 2 copies of Howitzer. Howitzer is unaffected by other card effects, which is insanely good. It's one of the best first play defensive cards to be able to just get on your side of the field and sit on it for a little bit. And during your main phase, you can inflict 1000 points of damage to your opponent, and you can only use the effect of this card once per turn. And if this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, which is usually going to be battle that your opponent's going to have to run over this, you can special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your deck, ignoring its summoning condition, which is usually going to be Ancient Gear Golem or Ultimate Pound. Then we play 2 copies of Ancient Gear Ballista. Ballista is really good because if this card is link summoned, you get to add an Ancient Gear monster or 1 Gear Town from your deck to your hand, and then you can target a spell or trap you control and 1 face-up card your opponent controls, and destroy that card you control, and if you do, your opponent's monster becomes 0 attack, which helps you OTK your opponent ridiculously quick in this deck. 1 copy of Verte Anaconda. Anaconda basically is just here for using Overload Fusion and your Ancient Gear Fusion, and it's really easy to go into this card to be able to help you go into your fusion plays, but it just helps you support your fusion plays. 1 copy of Juggernaut Libby, because you can go into this card ridiculously easy into the deck and OTK your opponent really, really fast with this card. 1 copy of Super Dora, because you can go into this card and it's unaffected by everything, and then go into Juggernaut Libby. 1 copy of Gustav Max, because you can go into this card and then inflict 2000 points of damage to your opponent, and then go into Juggernaut Libby. 1 copy of True King of All Calamities, because you can go into this card with a copy of Railroad Stampede and a copy of your Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon. 1 copy of Tornado Dragon to pop spells or traps, and number 60 Timeless to be able to double the attack of monster, which is going to help you OTK overall in the deck. So that's pretty much it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really fun deck to play with. I highly recommend that if you guys have not played with Ancient Gears before, you definitely should, because it is one of the craziest decks in the entire game to play around with, and it's super nostalgic because you get to play one of my favorite cards in the entire game, which is Ancient Gear Golem. I remember when they first came out with this card and I was like, I have to get it because I saw the Lost Millennium and I actually got this card. I didn't pull it in a pack, I actually traded for it, which was really insane. So anyways, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification, come part notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.